Hello, and welcome to the Business Behind Small Business, the show that reminds you that just because you own a business doesn't mean you are a business owner. In each episode, we will discuss common issues small businesses face and offer tips and advice from the perspectives of two business owners, one that is built to sell and one that is built to inherit. We are your hosts, Sevana Stone and Tiffany Ko. There's a lot of business behind small business, so let's get to it. If you've not had the misfortune of being ghosted before, it means when someone cuts off all communication with you without a reason or explanation for it. All of a sudden, they disappear, and you're left wondering what happened. This can really stink when in a budding relationship. However, it can be quite costly when in business. What does it mean when a client ghosts you, especially when they owe you money? And how do you prevent it from happening? Before we begin, please note our disclaimer. This is available in both our show notes and on our website and should be referred to before and or after this podcast. So let us know, how do or why do clients ghost you?
Well, I'll start by saying that regardless if a client owes you money, if they ghost you, it's probably not a good sign. Unless you're in a business where no news is good news, maybe that is the case. But typically, if you are in some kind of service-based business and you require some engagement from your client to be able to provide the service that you're doing, and you also want to make sure that you're ensuring a long-term relationship, ghosting should throw a yellow flag or red flag for you so that you know that something has gone wrong with the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few reasons that people ghost. I would like to say I came up with this list, but I didn't come up with this list. I took it off a blog by Lincoln Murphy, who is a kind of a customer success expert. And so he had 5 reasons why clients ghost, and I agree with all 5 reasons. So here goes. So the first reason is that they are disappointed in you. So somehow you dropped the ball and they're really disappointed and they're just not getting back to you anymore. The other reason is that they're ashamed themselves. So maybe they dropped the ball and they just feel incredibly embarrassed and they are now avoiding your phone calls. The third reason could be the fact that they are overwhelmed. So you basically gave them way too many balls to juggle and it's too much. Like you're overdoing it. Fourth reason is they're underwhelmed, meaning that whatever they bought, the balls that they bought was not what they thought they bought. And they're just kind of underwhelmed with what you're providing. So that could also be termed under, I think, buyer's remorse a bit. And the fifth reason is they're simply very, very busy. And so they themselves have way too many other balls that they're juggling around and they just don't have time, which I find to be mostly the reason why clients do not get back to you, is that they just kind of have this whole other life because, hey, they're business owners, whatever the case may be, they're just busy. And sometimes they're not very good at juggling all that and something falls out and that happens to be you. So all of it is to say that it usually goes back to some form of lack of communication, miscommunication, undercommunication, or overcommunication. So we're going to use Savannah's favorite word is interpersonal communication to use that as an example here as well, meaning that if you have a really strong line of communication with your client, typically ghosting is not going to happen as much. Now, I also would like to say that usually when you start a new client relationship, there seems to be kind of like a honeymoon period in the front. They bought what you're selling and they're super excited and they're onboarding. And so you have a very short period of time in the beginning to make a really good impression and kind of establish a solid relationship so that they don't actually ghost you in the future. Now, I know that one of our topics or one part of our topic is to talk about clients who owe you money that has ghosted you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole other problem because they're probably just ghosting you because they don't want to pay either. And my personal opinion is that that's terrible. Nobody should ever do that. I can't tell you a time where I've ever ghosted my own vendors because this is bad business ethics. Like it's bad business practice. But it does happen and it happens quite often. So if it's happening to you right now as our listeners, don't feel bad. You're probably in the same boat as a lot of us, where our clients simply just kind of drop you and don't want to talk to you because they know that they owe you something that they don't quite want to give up.
But there are ways to avoid that. Well, I'd love to say you should send all clients that ghost you to collections and wipe your hands clean of it. But, I can say from experience, it's not always the best prevention. Well, but it all starts from the beginning of the relationship, really. Like, there's communication, but there's the start of the communication. And generally speaking, when we get into a relationship with anybody, we set the parameters of what the conversation, or rather the communication, is going to be like. So, what I'm going to talk about is what starts before the relationship. It all really starts with your vetting process. And then it goes to your company's engagement letter or contract, or, whatever it is that you want to call it. So let's talk about the vetting process. This can get tricky because when we first start a business, or when our company is experiencing a lull, we can get a little desperate for clients, and we'll turn a blind eye to some of the finer points that could become potential red flags. Adding clients to your roster is much like dating. You can generally tell whether or not a client will be a good quality client, or if they're going to cause potential headaches and also have the potential of disappearing on you. I know it hurts to say no sometimes to a client, especially when you are experiencing financial difficulties, or maybe things are just not moving as quickly as you would like. But not all clients are good clients. So if anyone that approaches you seems like they might not be a good fit, but you'd really like the money, trust your gut and decline services. You'll thank me later. Now, let's say there is a client that you feel might be a great fit, but you still want to make sure to protect yourself. If you don't have an ironclad contract yet, make sure you do. This is money very well spent to ensure you get paid and are protected by the laws of your state. You may even have to ask for payment information and a deposit. Asking for both from the right kind of client won't be an issue, but believe me when I say the one that protests are the ones that don't pay. Be sure your contract is clear and outlines in great detail how you accept payment, what the timeline is for accepting payment, and the amount of time a client has to dispute said payment. I will tell you that was a very hard lesson learned for me. Speaking of payments, I know there are some businesses that will require payment after a job is done, or once a month. Sometimes the problem isn't that the client ghosted you or is withholding payment. Sometimes it's just that they forgot because there's too much time in between when payments are expected. Consider creating a schedule that is easy to maintain and easy to remember. So say every 2 weeks or something like that, so that a client can get used to your schedule and make mental notes that they will likely stick to. This will also help you better gauge your cash flow. Also, consider adding a late fee to your invoices. Generally speaking, when a client sees a late fee on an invoice, this is a great motivator, and it will motivate them to make a payment to not allow another invoice to go overdue. Another point about payments is that you really don't want to let a client accrue such an open balance that it becomes too much for them to pay down. If you find a client hasn't paid more than, say, 2 or 3 invoices, it's time to press upon them to start making payments depending on the amount of each invoice. I go back to my first recommendation, which is to set them up on ACH. But I understand that not every company can auto draft transactions, so do yourself a favor and make sure a client starts paying on an invoice or on invoices as soon as possible. To reiterate, make sure that you outline all of the details of how to pay, when to pay, and how to dispute pay as clearly as possible in your contract. And when I say dispute pay, this means if a client has an issue with an invoice, you need to put a timeline on that so that they can't come back to you a month later and dispute a charge. Make sure you give clients no more than 7 days, and after that, the charge is what is due and expected. You'd be surprised how many times that has come to try to bite me in the butt, but did not because of my ironclad contract. Vetting your clients and having a solid contract won't stop everyone from ghosting you, but it will certainly lessen the amount of times it happens. And if you do still get ghosted, it's time you choose a company that will collect due money on your behalf and let the chips fall where they may. So, so what was it that you did? How did you deal with potential ghosting or ghosting clients?
So I think the straw that kind of broke my camel's back was when, again, for our listeners who don't know, that we were both in the kind of accounting world,
Hmm.
when a CPA actually ghosted me on my payments. And then I was like, okay, this is it. I'm not dealing with this
Wow.
anymore, right? Like if you can be like a licensed professional who says you're a professional and you have clients too, you understand how this works, then if you're ghosting me and I'm spending all this time following up, I was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. This
Hmm.
is just a waste of time. And
Hmm.
I think it also showed me that it doesn't matter who you are, this happens.
Yes.
And for me, after that, I basically set all my clients up on auto draft. So either auto draft by a direct ACH or by credit cards. Now, with credit cards, of course, you have to pay a little bit of a fee because you do have those credit card fees for
Yeah.
processing it. I chose not to pass that through to my client because I feel like that 3% was probably less than I would pay if I were to send the payment to collection. So
Yeah.
overall, I was still kind of making out better than it would if I was hiring a debt collector instead of that. But yeah, like I think that's a thing is I always thought that you do business and everybody is good peoples and they do business on the same ethics and principles you do, but it's not always the case. And like we said earlier, there's a lot of reasons why somebody would ghost you. But I would say that pretty rarely, like I do have some clients who are great, that we had a great relationship with, and then every once in a blue moon they may ghost and forget a payment, but
Hmm.
it's pretty rare,
Hmm.
right, Savannah? Like you would say that, like if a client kind of respects you, I don't feel like they'll kind of drop off the face of the earth, especially
Yeah.
if they owe you money.
Well, okay, so I always I found your ACH policy to be a little controversial, and I thought it was bold. Um, and I was too afraid to lose clients to do that. So I do have an ACH policy, but I allow clients to pay me on their own. If they don't pay me by a certain period of time, then I ACH them. If they choose to pay with credit card, I do pass the charge on to them because I don't have enough clients who use credit card for, I just don't, I don't. I probably get credit card charging twice a year, if that. But I have a hard time letting go of clients that I've had for a very long time, even though they don't pay me on time. And I know that's wrong. And it's so rich for me to be to be podcasting about how you should do these things. And then I don't follow what I practice, what I preach. But it can be really difficult when you have a client. Like I have clients that I've had for years and years and years, and I know that they're good for it. They're just forgetful. Um, I don't feel comfortable dropping them because they don't pay me until they owe me like 10 invoices. I know I should. I just can't bring myself to do it. I know that you wouldn't have a problem. You're like, pay me now, and you're done.
No, I would not. Well, okay, so to be clear though, I didn't start the company with all our clients on this auto ACH policy. It was
Yeah,
a few
true.
years
You
in
didn't.
before we switched over.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I do definitely know the transition can be tough. I will
Mm-hmm.
tell you that I didn't lose any clients over it. It was a hard it was a tough conversation, but to be quite honest, I mean it also depends on how you're set up to bill, right? So in my case, the payment was due after the work was done.
Yeah.
So it's not like I had them pay before we started the work. It was, let's just say it was like the first of the month for all the work done the month prior. So that kind of helped ease a lot of people's anxiety about it because, again, it's not like you're paying for something you didn't know what you were getting. You already got the service. We're simply collecting after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
For new clients coming in, that became simply my policy. So that was a little easier because once you kind of set the expectation up front, nobody really batted an eye, to be quite honest. And just so our listeners know, I am talking about collecting on a monthly basis anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 a month. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like we're talking about tiny, tiny amounts here, a few $100s. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I think it's It's really just a matter of principle and being clear and transparent about what your policy is and setting an expectation up front.
Yeah.
Now, I also did collect retainers from
Mhm.
clients, and that went toward their first invoice. So it was really helpful because when they collect the retainer, technically you get like 2 months worth of services before the next payment comes. So
Mhm.
2 months is kind of the burden on us as a service providers to really solidify that relationship to make them feel comfortable. So
Mhm.
that by the time the auto ACH came around on the second month, the client didn't even didn't even, like I said, blink an eye about it. I did have a couple prospects, and honestly, I can only count one or two where, the negotiations for the contract was going well. And when they saw the requirement in the contract for auto ACH, they're like, oh, no, 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 like we can't do this. And then, we went our separate ways because my viewpoint was, wait, so you're telling me that you won't pay me for the work we already did?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the principle and logic behind that, right?
Mhm.
And then I will tell you that one of our prospects who became our clients did kind of push back on it. But it's kind of interesting because for the people who pushed back on it, actually 2 or 3 clients actually pushed back on it. Their alternative was even better. Their alternative was, we don't want to go into auto ACH because we've had bad experience with companies who do that and they don't shut it off, which
Mhm.
completely understandable. That is
Mhm.
that is a problem with some companies. They're not shutting off the auto ACH. They actually just they offer to basically pay us ahead of time. So they're like,
Oh.
okay, well, instead of paying you for the prior month, how about we just pay you ahead of time by check and you get it by the 15th of the month. So we're both winning. Like it's halfway through the
Mhm.
month, you've done half the service, and you're getting paid 15 days before what your normal schedule is. And that was perfectly fine.
I think what, I deduced was, and so both of us are in the business to business, um,
Yes.
industry,
Yeah. So we're not
and
business to consumer. So we should make that
no.
clear.
However,
Yeah.
uh, I feel like business to consumer or business to business, regardless of who it is that you're working with and what the dollar signs look like, a person who is serious about their motivation, whatever it is that they're purchasing from you, whether it's a product or a service, if they're serious about it, then they're serious about paying you as well. They've already taken into account that this is going to cost them money. A person who is not as serious or might be more wishy-washy about things is going to be less likely to pay you. So when I say that,
Yeah.
I feel like so the business, and again, these are all lessons learned, right? Over the years, I learned lessons about quality over quantity. Didn't matter if I took on more clients. If none of them were going to pay me, I was still at zero. So I accepted clients that were more quality and were more serious about their
That
businesses.
helps. Yeah.
Yes, who were more serious about the growth of their business, the finances of their business, and X, Y, and Z, but that's because I'm business to business. Now, if I had been business to consumer, I feel like it would have been the same scenario. Are you serious about purchasing this? Are you serious about, and when I say that, like if you're selling cars, you're selling jewelry, you're selling, whatever it is, whatever product it is, if a person's just kind of quote unquote kicking the tires, they're going to be less likely to pay you the amount that you are charging, and will also argue the amount that you're charging. I find that that tends to happen a lot to people who create their own product. So, say artists or artisans of any kind, whatever it is that they're making. You see a $30 candle at Anthropology, not a problem. You'll pay for it. But you see a $30 candle at the farmer's market, and you're like, should you really be charging me $30 for this soy candle? I'll pay you 15, you know? So, when you come across a person like that, then you're like, well, then you don't take my art seriously. You don't take my product seriously, or, whatever it is that you're selling, or my service seriously. And I don't need you. So these are points that you should take into consideration, and right, I should be practicing what I preach more. But like I said, there have been there are some.
It is hard
It is
though,
really, really
right?
hard. It
Because
is.
that revenue looks so good on your books, but then you're like, well, if I'm not collecting, this is
And
certainly
what's
not
the
going to help
point?
me pay my bills,
Absolutely.
So
And I would also like to point out the whole making it clear that you only have a certain time frame to dispute, because twice I got caught by not having that in my contract. And that
yeah.
actually ended up costing me a lot, because I didn't put in there that you only had like 7 days after a receipt of the invoice to dispute whatever it is that we did, because I always billed after the work was done. So there
Hmm.
were two individual times when a person came to me months later after details had been forgotten on my end, to dispute, and then got out of paying a bill because I just wasn't willing to fight them anymore. And that cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I put in my contract, you have 7 days to dispute the invoice. And if you do not say anything, then, it is what it is.
Yeah, we actually had something pretty similar too, because when you do these auto ACH, and of course you go through a service, so it's not like I was doing it manually,
Right,
but you go
right.
through a service, and the service actually shoots out an email, and you can set how many days before. So like I set mine like 7 days before the auto ACH drafts, and
Yeah.
it'll shoot out an email basically alerting the other person that, hey, we're going to do an auto ACH at this date. If you have any issues with the service, whatever case may be, please let us know before the ACH actually drafts. So that becomes kind of their window to kind of dispute anything. But you
Mm-hmm.
bring up a very good point, I think, for our listeners. If you don't already have that in your contract, certainly put that in, because maybe it's not happening to you today, but I guarantee you, if you get enough customers, it's going to happen to you at some point where someone's
Yeah.
going to come back, circle back around 6 months later,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, whether it's legitimate or not, it doesn't matter, but they will circle back around 6 months later to say that, hey, I didn't like what happened 6 months ago, and I'm
Yes.
just getting around to, arguing about it now. So that's definitely an important contract language to put into your kind of service
Mm-hmm.
terms and agreements and whatnot.
And it helps with your processes and procedures as well, because if you've grown to a point in which you have a customer service line where people would call in for your customer service and say, I dispute whatever amount it is that you charged me for whatever service it is that you provided, then
Right.
that customer service person would also know that, well, that was 2 months ago. So, you owe, you owe now. You can't dispute this now.
Well, to your point earlier, is I think for our listeners is, even if you don't go the route of auto ACH like I did, right? And to be clear too about that, like we did have every once in a while, I would have clients call and just ask us to push back the ACH for like a week or two,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe there's a cash flow problem or something like that. They just need to get over, and that's completely fine. We were completely human about it, and of course we accommodated. So it's not like we were just kind of like hard and fast, like you don't pay us and we're cutting you off, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's exceptions to be made. All right, going back to the point you were talking about earlier, Savannah, about kind of setting your foot down. So
Yeah.
like I was saying, like if you don't feel comfortable going kind of the hard and fast way I did, which was kind of auto ACH or auto pay everybody, then just make sure that on the back end you are comfortable putting your foot down if somebody doesn't pay you.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, before I implemented the auto ACH, one of the methods I tried, which worked, although I still felt like it was more effort than necessary, is that, if a client doesn't pay for maybe one invoice or 15 days or whatever your cutoff is,
Mhm.
then you either stop services, I mean, after a conversation, but you call them and you try to follow up and you don't let it pile up to be like,
Yeah.
3 or 4 months in, right? It's just that if you're not comfortable doing the auto pay, then you just need to make sure you put your foot down, because otherwise, like, you're not in a business of giving away free service. You're not a loan service either. Right.
Mhm.
And so, when things start piling up 3 to 4 months, that's a long time for somebody not to pay you.
Yes.
So put your foot down about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually what I end up always doing. And I'm like, all right, it's time to pay up, son. And it's really funny. I gotta tell you this. So, one time a lot of times actually, when I send hey, you're like 2 or 3 behind, it's time to pay. I always make sure that I put the service provider in the email as well, so that they're aware. Especially if they're doing accounting or bookkeeping, then it's important for them to know according to what they're keeping track of, the payables. So one time I sent an email to a client, and my service provider responded to the email to him only, but because of the system that I have, like, I can see the emails too. How dare you not pay her? She does all this. Like, she reprimanded him like a mama. She was like, you.
Oh my gosh.
And I got paid. I got paid the next day.
I mean, I know that some like clients don't mean to do that,
Yeah.
but like, look, I mean, we're in business to be in business, right? Like, we're all
Right.
business owners. We're all busy. So like, the way I see it is that if I find it in my willpower to provide the service I say and also
Yeah.
pay my vendors on time, then it's just simply a matter of like your own time management and organization, right? Like, I don't know if there's really that much of an excuse unless you're really unhappy with the service. That's definitely a legitimate like reason to not pay.
Well, and if you're not happy with the service, then you need to speak up, because
Right.
you not speaking up is unfair. And I feel like it's the same in a relationship. If you are not happy with something, then you're making a choice. If you stay silent, then you are making a choice to put up with it. If you're saying something, then you're making a choice to change it. And this is all across the board: friendships, romantic relationships, and business relationships. If you don't say anything, then you have to accept that this is what you're going to pay for, whether it be with money or with time. So, if you're not happy, then speak up or shut up. I don't know. So,
or get out.
Or get out. Anyway, in each episode, we like to connect a famous example to our discussion to help you relate our talking points on a more global or well-recognized scale. Sometimes we use exact examples of either famous persons or successful business owners of today or in history, and sometimes we use examples of people who inspire us and have inspired today's discussion. I think today we've agreed that my example is the best example.
It's the best example. Yes, that's right. You get the blue ribbon for this one.
So instead of choosing a famous example, I thought I'd share a company that fits perfectly with today's discussion. I'm quoting this from Investopedia's article on the 5 best debt collection agencies, and we'll have the link in our show notes. Atradius Collections have been in operation since 1925 and is a leading commercial debt collection agency. They're based in the Netherlands, and the company is a member of several different debt collection trade associations throughout the world, including the International Association of Commercial Collectors, the Credit Services Association, and the Federation of European Credit Management Associations. Atradius Collections supports more than 15,000 customers and handles more than 90,000 cases of commercial debt per year. Atradius Collections provides commercial debt support worldwide, and it works in more than 30 different countries. Unlike many companies, Atradius Collections does not have a required minimum on debt. So I chose this company because of that, because I don't know if you've ever done, listeners or yourself, Tiffany, have ever done research on debt collection agencies. Most of them have a minimum requirement. So that kind of cuts out those companies that maybe have a small debt to collect and don't have a way in which to do that. The Atradius Collections fees are dependent on your invoice amount and the location of the client. The commission fees are not readily available on the Atradius Collections site, but for me, I feel like it's totally worth it. For an invoice that is 180 days overdue or more, Atradius Collections will charge you an additional 2% commission on top of its standard rate. If you have international clients that have not paid their invoices, you'll pay an introduction fee and a higher commission than if they were based in the US. The company offers comprehensive services, including amicable debt collections, legal collections worldwide, insolvency services against bankrupt debtors, and standby services. Atradius Collections operates the Collect@Net online platform so you can monitor the collection progress. Atradius stands apart from the competition because of its strong reputation, international expertise, and transparent fees. It's also the only agency that allows you to get an instant detailed quote online without having to first speak to a representative, which to me is golden.
No, that's
So
great. I would certainly say definitely have a debt collector in your back pocket. It
for
makes all the
sure.
difference.
For sure. Because there have been times when you have tried. I mean, certainly, in my opinion, I think the process ought to be reaching out to them, reminding them that they have an invoice, reaching out to them again. I kind of have a three touch. If I've contacted you 3 times and you've said nothing, now is when I say, hey, this is going to collections. If I don't hear from you within the next X amount of days, this is going to collections. If I still don't hear from them, then it's out of my hands. I don't know what to tell you.
Now, is your 3 times always by email, or do you do like email phone
Always
combination?
email. Always
Okay.
email. So that way I have a written,
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
Um,
I would
I'm
do
just saying,
both.
you would do calling as well?
I would do both actually. And also I would call and email at the same time just so that you have a record again of that you like called or emailed, whichever one you do first, right? So if you call, I'll just say in a voicemail because if they're ghosting you, they're not going to pick up, right? So
No, no, definitely. Yeah.
you're definitely leaving a voicemail. So you just leave a
Hmm.
voicemail and say, hey, I'm going to follow up also by email. And the email you reference the call. And that way, like you don't ever come back and somebody's like, oh, it went to my spam box.
Yeah, yeah, true, true.
You
Okay, yeah.
know,
Well,
oh,
I guess it depends on how that client generally communicates with you, right? Like if they tend to communicate via phone and you're emailing them, they likely won't be seeing the email. Because I do have a couple of clients that rarely ever look at their emails, and I will have to be like, "Hey, heads up, I'm sending you an email." Um,
I
but
agree with you. But I think you make a good point is that you need to have this in writing.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I'm just saying that if you're really trying to collect and you're trying to be effective, then I would say do both. Like you at a minimum have to email, but I would also call them just as an alternative to try to get their attention. And so that
Hmm.
if you send them to collections, you know that you've actually done your best to try to get a hold of them to let them know that, hey, this action is coming. Like, call me back if you want me to not send you to collections.
Yeah, yeah, true. Or just send them and say, you know what? Off you go. You're fired, or you're off the
Well, I
island.
have to say the CPA that goes to me on my payment, which is again is way back when, right? So this is before the auto ACH thing. All of a sudden called me back out of nowhere, however many months later, because I sent it to a local debt collector. So there was a local company I used,
Yeah.
a really small shop that I used, and I sent them to them. And so of course they started doing whatever it is that they do. They're so good at. And then I get the call and be like, well,
Hmm.
like why didn't you like, let's talk about this. And I'm like, yep, too late. Sorry. Already at the
Mhm.
like I can't legally like talk to you at this point. I already have somebody who's working on your case. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. So figure it out.
It's too late.
Slightly satisfying, I have to say. Slightly satisfying.
It's too
I
late.
know that sounds so evil, but I'm just saying that like I just can't like I don't have the time for people who don't run like run like doesn't have the respect to
No,
actually
I understand.
pay for
Yeah,
services rendered on time.
for sure. Faux show. So, with each episode, we like to share either books, tools, apps, platforms, or anything we think is a great next step and connector to our discussion. So, if you like our subject matter and want to learn more, you'll have a great place to start. I believe my recommendation is also the solid contender here. Yes?
No, like
No?
you can
You have
recommend, I
something?
guess.
Okay, all
Well,
right.
I don't have a book, I guess. I
I'd
don't
have
have
a
a
book.
book about this. No, I mean, but I can summarize. I guess summarize kind of like what we had discussed. I mean, like I said, if you can't go through the auto ACH way, then go. Put your foot down about your terms and policies, and don't let somebody walk all over you about that. Right? If you run a solid business, meaning that you provide like you make a good product or you provide a
Mhm,
good service, then stand by it and know that you are entitled to your payment, especially once the service is rendered.
mhm,
I mean, I guess the quote that I learned pretty early on, which made me put my own foot down, is that like everybody thinks it's a privilege to work with customers. And it is, right? If a
mhm,
customer works with you and they're paying you for your service, then absolutely it is a privilege
mhm,
to be able to have a business and be able to have paying customers. But at the same time, I think it also goes the other way, where it is a privilege for a customer to work with you.
mhm.
It's not a one-way street. It has to be respect that goes both ways. And so just kind of keep that in mind if you find yourself just a little bit hesitant or timid about these kind of collections issues, because you absolutely owe it to yourself to be able to collect on the money for the services rendered in the product that
Mhm.
you provided because you are in business.
So, who did you use for your ACH? What platform did you use? Maybe that can help as a recommendation.
That's a good question.
Do you remember?
Yeah, the only thing is, the only reason why I didn't say anything was only because the service was bought.
Oh,
Whatever platform it was actually bought and integrated into ADP.
oh, I see, I see.
So it just became kind of like an ADP service instead.
Mhm.
But if I remember correctly, there are other services like I think Stripe out there also does something like that.
Mhm.
I believe QuickBooks has an auto pay mechanism
Yeah,
to it as well,
yeah.
but
Yes.
I think that requires a little bit more of a setup. So
It
yeah,
it only
there is a
requires.
variety of services, but the one I use kind of got bought by ADP.
Yeah. So I use QuickBooks' auto ACH. I really like it. And the only thing that it requires is for you
Yeah,
to put the parameters in, like X amount of when it should take it out, what should it take out, and what should be on the receipt. And it just auto takes out every month.
right.
It's fantastic. I also have it set up so that I have some clients that want to have the invoice in hand, and then within at the 30-day mark, because I have a 30-day return or net pay. So on the 30 days is when I manually uh, do the transaction. So I do the ACH manually on the
Yeah, I think you
30th
still have to
day.
press a button, right?
Yeah, I just have to
Yeah,
press a button. So it
yeah,
works for me.
yeah,
I like that too. And for a good portion of my clients, they prefer it because then they know what day to expect that to happen. Because there are some clients that are hourly, and so they know what they're going to be getting charged. They just, I just ACH them on the 30th day. So, and then also I have some clients that forget to pay me, and so I'll let them know a week ahead of time. Hey, you haven't paid me yet. Do you want me to just run this? Uh, they'll either come back with oh yeah, I forgot. Here, let me run it for you. Or yeah, go ahead and run it. I'll get that as well. That makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
yeah. I think you bring up a good point. Is like, if you do stuff where you have auto ACH,
Mhm.
you want to, you want to respect your client, right? Don't make a mess of it, right? If
Yeah,
you have the power to do auto ACH, don't make a mess of it and then lose the trust of your client because
yeah.
you're doing it wrong, or you're doing it inconsistently and you're just completely disrespecting their cash flow. Like, don't do that and lose the faith of your customer base there. So
Mhm.
even though we had auto ACH, I check that thing religiously once a month because I certainly don't want to, have to go apologize to a client because I auto ACH the wrong amount or something
Right, right.
happened along those lines that kind of showed like issues of our own process and the integrity of what we're doing. So if you're going to go that route, then certainly, lay down the process and respect it and do a good job so you don't lose the faith of your
Mhm.
client.
Yeah, and also another point, I have also a couple of other clients that will approve an invoice, but I still don't make the payment or run the payment until the 30th day, because then it keeps me on a schedule and it has them knowing that when that money is actually going to come out, as opposed to it being on the 10th of one week month and the 2nd of another month. It's coming out in this
Yeah.
willy-nilly dates. It's coming out on the 30th day every single time. um so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best recommendation that I can give.
No, I agree with you there.
Yeah. Well, and it helps with their cash flow, but it also helps with your own cash flow. I think that you should seek out your local county small business support program. Like we have the Small Business Development Center, SBDC. Yes. There's
SBDC.
Yeah, the SBDC. There's often great help out there by localities to support small businesses, and there's free advice to help you learn more about best practices for accounts receivable, along with other great business building programs. Your local government wants small business to succeed to feed the local economy. So there's likely some type of program to support you and guide you as you build your business. So, like, we had the SBDC, and we had another one too that I cannot remember the name of, but the county that we're in has a lot of great small business assistance, support, guidance, programs that are either free or very low cost. The second recommendation I have is an ebook called Accounts Receivable Management Best Practices by John G. Salick. He is the national leader of the receivable cycle management practice of Parson Consulting, which is a large financial consulting firm with offices throughout the US and United Kingdom. The ebook is really short, very precise, and it's more about, it is about best practices, but it really focuses on processes, which is something that I really like, because I think sometimes the problem is that a process isn't there, or a system isn't there. And that's where the breakdown generally happens. Please join us for our next episode where we will discuss government contracting. What are the steps for a new business, a transitioning business, and what all those initialisms mean? Please show us your support by following us on your preferred podcast platform, social media, and YouTube. We'd love for you to also share our episodes. All of our links are posted below. Until next time, mind your business behind your small business.